Artists, welcome back to the sculpture, and I am going to scan this little guy. This is of course the most recent sculpture that I did of the alien, the gray. When you scan it in the actual size, which is really beneficial. So I'm going to be using my Creality 3D scanner, and it's a very simple scanner, and I've told you guys about some of the downsides of it. So it comes with cables, and I have my computer here. This one, it's the USB, goes into the computer, and I'm using a PC. I heard there's issues with the putting it up on a Mac. I haven't tried it on a Mac. I do have a Mac. It's a bullet connector, goes into the 3D printer, and then you're going to start hearing a fan. And the scanner is live. So now, all I'm going to do is go to my Creality Studio Lite, which comes with this, but it's also free to download. I think maybe in the future Creality should just do an app for the phone or make this Bluetooth. The real downside of this for me is the software is not very good. The one mistake I made in the beginning is I thought that you scanned it this way. I was wondering why everything was backwards. But you hold it like this if you're hand scanning. And now with the screen, you have everything that you want. The middle part is where the object is. The goal of this is that you have to be a certain distance from your model. So if you're too far away, it's not going to capture, and too close, it's not going to capture. If you look in the upper right-hand corner when you start scanning, it's going to give you a preview, and if it's really a good distance, it's going to show up there very clearly. And you want to be about this, so it's about 10 inches away from your model. And you want geometry to be checked. At least we'll do a geometry one, and then we'll do a texture one. Brightness, I like to keep the brightness higher up, and frame rate, it's up to you, but a lower frame rate makes more sense. You can do it slower. So all I'm going to do now is hit scan, and then it's going to give you a preview. Now at this point, you want to hold it up to your model, and I'm going to like move it to the front here. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of light on your model, because this uses LiDAR. So I'm starting to see my little alien fellow, and you see the scanning count, it just keeps going up. 45, frame rate is 5. So I'm not varying the distance of my model. And you can't be too fast with this. You have to be really slowly and steady, but it does capture extremely well for it. If you go too fast, sometimes it captures multiple things. And I believe that we're getting a little bit of a mistake, but we're going to keep. Sometimes you get the multiples, and I don't know exactly why that is, why it captures multiples. Like I said, the real downside of this Creality scanner is the software. The software is really bad, and I wish they would create, or they would come up with a interface that was a little bit better. I think that's really my only complaint, and the cleanup afterwards tends to be a little bit messier. So we're starting to get the alien, but we might have to rescan this, because if you look at the head, there's multiple ones, multiple heads. But sometimes when you click on finish or stop, it will correct it. So it really depends. If you see any black spots, that means that you have to redo it. Another thing I like to do, I like to look up at the chin, because it's a 3D model. You want to make sure that everything is scanned from underneath and from above. Okay. And I want to get in the shoulder area, underneath. Make sure you don't get your hands. It does have an issue scanning hair. That's a really downside of these 3D scanners. I think the really good ones don't have such an issue. If I go too far out, it says target out of sight, and there's one that says move the scanner slowly. So I'm going to do a little bit more. It scanned the entire thing, and it's only at 757 count. I'm going to put it right here. So it doesn't take long to get like a initial scan. There's also the scanning multiples. Let's say there's a 3D object, front and back. You can do a scan for the front and then a scan for the back and put it all together. So I'm going to hit stop right now, and then it's going to processing scan data. And after it's done with the processing scan data, you're going to have the big picture, and then that way we might have to redo it or not. Sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 scans in various things just to make sure that I have everything I want. We're going to do this time, we're going to change the frame rate to high, and it asks you to save it, and that's pretty much all you have to do. So now we're just going to rescan it using high. You're going to see the difference. It's these high files take much more space. The way this thing captures is that it creates a lot of polygons. So when you create a lot of polygons, you're basically creating large files. In video games, for example, the models are very light, very low poly. Nowadays, with strong computers, you can make models that are more complex. But with this sort of system, you're relying on high polys, and that means you're going to get like files that are 50 megabytes, 100 megabytes, so quite a bit. So it's scanning the entire head. I don't see any errors thus far. If there's any black spots on your model, just try and linger there for more, or moving it up and down. So I'm going to move now to this. It's getting a little bit of the neck. It's capturing it pretty well. So this is the high poly. If you see parts blacking out as you're going, don't worry about it. It's going to fill them out. I don't know exactly why it's doing that. And you also see the memory usage. You need a fairly strong computer for this. So if you have a gaming computer, that's perfect. I've had this software also crash. Like I said, this tool is pretty effective, but the software could use a little bit of help. Moving down to the torso now. Move down to the base. Like I said in the previous sculpting video, I'm going to do like a Greek base on them. So I didn't sculpt it because that was not my intention. That's the beauty of the 3D stuff, is that you can vary up the versions. You can actually do multiple versions, and you can have this sculpture in a different size without making different molds, without getting your hands dirty. So the only downside of this current system is that it is not perfect. The model itself is not great. So I'm going to try and get the color here, because I didn't get it before. But this scan's much faster. Moving it up and down like this to get as much as possible. I moved it a little bit further away. There's some black spots that I'm trying to get information. So you can see I'm moving it so I can look at the eyes at this point. You know, ever since I started doing 3D scanning, I kind of stopped doing mold making. And I would love to try different scanners, but the large scanners, the expensive ones, well, they're very expensive, $6,000 for the good versions. But okay guys, so if you look around, I am looking at my model. You want to look for mistakes, things that are missing. If you zoom in, it's always going to have these little black areas, but when you do the next step, and I'm going to show you, we have 2 scans. And you can see scan 1 and scan 2 here. It actually puts it all together. So when you do that, it kind of auto align, simplified face, fill holes. The fill holes, if you have any like black areas, it's going to like compute a thing, and I usually say yes. So here is the next step. That's the 2 models put together automatically. You see there's like a big hole here. It's going to fill it up because we have 2 scans. This sometimes takes a long time. It's the processing. When you have the processing, it puts it all together into a model, and then after that model, it's going to be simplified. It doesn't have all the noise that the 3D model has. There is a few extra steps that I'm not going to show you in this video, and that is taking it to Mesh Mixer. I found that Mesh Mixer is the best one. You could use something like Blender or 3D Studio Max to take your object that you scanned, because it's not going to be perfect. And let's say I wanted to remove the base and put a Roman Emperor's pedestal on here, which I intend on doing. The thing I'll do is I'll create the pedestal first, or download it from websites such as Thingiverse. Sometimes there's like really interesting pedestals that you can use, and then substitute that with this in Mesh Mixer. But Mesh Mixer is a free software for downloading, and it has just enough tools to finish your sculpture on the computer. So I'm going to put a link to the download for this, and if you do make one, please put a link somewhere so I can check it out. There's YouTubers, for example, 3D Solid Memories. He's done quite a few prints of my sculptures, and I love seeing it because he has a camera on his 3D printer, and then he shows the process, and sometimes he paints it. It looks so much better than the prints that I come out with. And the next video I do, I'm probably going to show you the print that I do of this little guy. So if you like this video, found it educational, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next sculpture. Thank you for watching.